Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week on Film Week. On this episode
You
of
can
Season
hear me.
2, we will be discussing our first impressions on the Tiger King series adaptation announcement and also an update on a film in the Star Wars arena that we will discuss later, and also our film club discussion for the week. I don't feel at home in this world anymore. Today, surprisingly, it's hosted by me, Samuel Teyssier, and I'm joined by Michael Doerge.
You can actually hear me today.
There he is, and Jackson Guido.
Hello, how are you?
So how are you guys doing? I didn't really get a chance to say hi yet, but how are you guys doing this week? Anything new? Anything to surprise me with? Other than Doerge's mic.
Right, yes. No, Turkey is upgraded from, civilian amateur mic quality to full-blown professional Twitch streamer microphone quality.
Yeah,
So,
he should have became a streamer long before. Then
Durgy went
yeah.
from crackly all the way up to number one mic quality on the show.
Well,
so.
again, this is only thanks to my roommates not playing video games right now, so I was able to steal one.
There you go.
So you can thank my
The
friend.
servers are down, Film Week's up, so here we go. Yeah, anything new, guys, other than watching I Don't Feel at Home in this world anymore?
I also got a chance to check out JoJo's Bizarre Adventure this week, which is a show that it's one of those that's been on my list for forever. I'm 8 episodes in with Stephanie. We're loving it all the way through. It is
anime.
It's an anime in the truest sense of the word, but it's really something. It's a spectacle. You know, everything that everyone's said about it, it's true and then some. So a hard recommend, especially if you're a fan of the genre.
So a full-blown one, not like in an Avatar The Last Airbender?
No, yeah, it's a full Japanese production as far as I can tell. And every trope, every stereotype that you see in, of anime, it's in there, and it's loud and proud.
I've seen one episode of that, and it was the weirdest thing I've
ever seen.
A little
bit too much for you?
More than my taste. Yeah, I prefer my anime grounded, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll definitely have times when we're watching where we're like, we have to stop now. This is too much.
Yeah.
We'll watch an episode or two at a time. We'll say time to cleanse from that.
Yeah, palate cleanser from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but other than that, I said that I wanted to talk about Clone Wars. I know. Did you guys watch Clone Wars?
Yes.
The ending of the whole series.
I did.
Because my whole goal was to watch all 4 back to back because they do like mini 4-episode arcs. So I went on a drought from the series for a few weeks, but I've been too busy somehow in quarantine to watch those yet. So tonight after Film Week, I will watch those. But if we can do like a little mini non-spoiler review after our little Star Wars news announcement, I'd enjoy that.
Yeah, I'll talk about it.
I can't wait to hear about it, and I know what happens, but how it happens, I want to find out, and that's what I'll see in just a few hours. But we'll talk about that. But did you guys watch anything other than JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and our film of the week?
I watched. What did I watch? Well, I watched Clone Wars. That's one thing.
Clone Wars, yeah.
I watched. I watched a new movie last night. I can't remember. Oh, I rewatched Jackie Brown.
Nice.
Tarantino's 3rd film. I saw the new Rick and Morty. It was weird.
I wonder why it took 6 months to make. They had that break in the mid-season. Is that just to get hype around it?
Probably.
Okay.
Probably. I'd imagine that it was when these things take a long time, like animations. It's usually, I feel like, the animation department is what makes it take long. I feel like they had these scripts written for a while. They obviously went back in the 80-yard, the end of it, to add that joke. They added a joke about coronavirus. But no, I don't think. I think it was mostly the animation. They just might have taken a while. You saw BoJack Horseman do the same thing earlier this year or last year. They split their season in half, and I feel like another show did it too. I'm not sure. But other than that, I started watching Star Wars Rebels a little bit after coming off the Clone Wars high. I was like,
it worked.
I think I told you guys last week I watched Midnight Gospel, didn't I?
Yeah, Duncan
Yeah.
Trussell,
Yeah, I think that's about it.
Netflix. Yeah, so we're sticking to the same things, guys. If you guys watch anything, let us know in the comments. But we're just going to start right off with our discussion of our film of the week, and we all saw it. Hopefully,
Right.
I just and to be honest with you guys, I just saw it I just finished probably 20 minutes ago because I always wait till the last minute for these things, but I'm very happy that I did see it because I'm a fan of Malcolm Blair or Macon Blair just from his collaboration work with Jeremy Saulnier. I think that's how you say his name.
Saulnier.
And Saulnier, a little Frenchy.
Like you.
Just from seeing the Green Room, and he had a supporting role in that, and he also had a little mini cameo in this film as well as the guy who spoiled her book at the bar. That was him.
Yeah.
So it was nice to see him in his own film. He wrote and directed this film. And so, yeah, Doerge, since you can talk this week, you chose this film. So if you want to lead the discussion, and if you want to start with anything, you can go
I
ahead.
will say, I'll say what I saw. I remember what I saw. I've been watching Breaking Bad on and off with my roommate, who's been watching the whole series. But I saw every other episode, and I watched like the last 2 episodes of the series, and it was pretty great. Ryan Johnson directs The
Fly. That's one of them.
Directs The Fly, and he directs the best episode, Ozymandias, which is weird. I'd heard a lot about this episode of Breaking Bad, which is supposed to be like the best episode of television ever. Some stuff like
I think it's a valid claim, really.
Yeah, and then I was like looking at it, and I was like, "Oh, Ryan Johnson directed that. Like that was his main claim to fame before Star Wars." Anyways, so I don't feel at home in this world anymore. I really dug it. It was weird, but I think it's kind of like that dark comedy, like crime thriller thing that it reminded me a lot of Blue Ruin, which is Jeremy Saulnier with Macon Blair as the lead in that. Reminded me a lot of that, just a lot weirder. And I don't know. It's not like my favorite movie ever, but I really dug the comedy in it. And Elijah Wood is just, I just love that.
He does whatever he wants anymore.
Yeah. I just love that guy, and I thought it was pretty fun and pretty interesting.
Yeah, Elijah Wood's performance especially is that this weird neighbor, and he's got this weird fascination with combat, and he has this funny way of talking. I thought he nailed it, really. I mean, I always find he and Daniel Radcliffe and a lot of other actors who have been in these big franchises, you never know what kind of range they have, but he can play the weird kind of off-putting, but also heartwarming character. And not to spoil too much, but he was put in peril a few times in this movie, and I really was hoping for him to make it through. He was definitely my favorite character through and through. Not that I didn't like the main character; I thought she did a great job.
Yeah, especially with Elijah Wood's character. Just he's the character that you would think would need a bodyguard, but he kind of acts as a bodyguard throughout the film.
Right.
And he didn't go too far with his just oddness, but it was refreshing with the seriousness of the film that he was there, sort of as a comic relief throughout it, with the serious issues that it does touch upon. And some of them are just the main character sees the world as crap. Like she has a very, in the beginning of the film, nihilistic viewpoint of the world. Just everything's crap. What happens when I die? Nothing. That's what she thinks. But throughout the film, her view does change from the events that she does journey through, and it was a nice journey throughout. And it kind of reminded me of a Tarantino-esque adventure throughout it. It kind of gave me that feel, especially towards the end when the crap hits the fan.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Just the action of the end, especially just because I haven't seen a film like that since Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. At least that's the film I can most easily compare it to from my recent viewings, and I kind of see some other similarities other than that, but and it takes place in modern day. It's a refreshing film, but Durgy, like, why did you pick this film to begin with? Because you said you saw something in it, Macon Blair. Was it just him? Is that
So
why you picked the film?
yeah, well, I was in desperation because I had to pick a new one.
Yeah.
And I think it'd been on my radar for a while because I like Macon Blair, and I like Elijah Wood a lot, and it seemed, I don't know, it seemed different than anything else we'd picked before. Kind of quirky, but also had this, comedic aspect to it with like like the dark comedy thing. It's a kind of movie I'm trying to watch more because I think I'm like starting to like think of ideas for like new scripts, and I'm trying to like do something that I haven't done before, and so I'm leaning towards like a dark comedy thing. So I thought it'd be interesting to watch, and I don't know, I really dug it. I just I don't know what really drew me to it. I was hesitant because it was Netflix produced, just because sometimes that means it's just like crap. Like it's just made to get made.
Yeah,
but it was Macon Blair, and it was won the grand jury prize at
It's his
Sundance.
directorial debut too, so which is good for him, especially with the accolades that is acquired.
Yeah, and it got the grand jury prize at Sundance in 2017, so I thought it couldn't be terrible.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I wasn't familiar with Macon Blair's work before this, and I'm still not, honestly, because I haven't seen any of his other films. But I don't know if his other films are like this, but it does make you feel, it's funny in parts, but it also makes you feel very alone, even though the world itself is inhabited, which I think was cool because obviously it fits with the whole theme of a nihilistic view and an idea that humanity isn't really worthy of being alive or inhabiting the earth because everybody's just rude to each other. She gets her laptop stolen, and she just has this, it just strengthens her view that things are bad and humanity is inherently bad. But I mean, there's very few extras in this film, and the extras that are there are very distant. The police that come to her house, they're not helpful, they're not particularly kind. There's really nobody like that. Elijah Wood's character is that breath of fresh air there because
he wants to help.
Yeah, you feel like the main character is finally connected to somebody who initially, with the whole dog thing on her lawn, was somebody who she lumped in with the rest of humanity. So I think, a major theme for this one is definitely like, the classic judging a book by its cover, realizing that people are deeper than what they appear to be or what their mistakes are, probably more importantly. I think that shows throughout, even though there are some, definitely some evil people in this movie.
Yeah. I thought go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just gonna make an off point that the cop, the main cop chief, whatever he is, he's played by I don't know the actor's name, but he's from Malcolm in the Middle. He plays Stevie's dad, which I don't know. I always liked Malcolm in the Middle as a kid, but what were you gonna say, Durgy?
Oh, I was just gonna say the comedy in it I really enjoyed. Just the whole thing where Elijah Wood walks into the house, or like when they go to the guy with the laptop, and he walks up and he goes like puts out his flail, and the guy grabs it, hits himself in the face with it, and falls down. He picks it up, runs inside, and he throws a morning star at the wall, and then just knocks something else over and goes like stairs. And then at the end of the scene where he's like goes over to get it back, he's like, that's how hard I threw it. Yeah, I threw it that hard. Yeah.
Great.
It fits exactly with his character. It doesn't feel out of place at all, and that's why in my mind, this film, it doesn't really feel like, I watch a lot of dark comedies and stuff like that, but this one, it feels darker than any like dark comedy I've ever seen, just because of how well it fits into the just the characters. It doesn't feel out of place and like just like jump scare humor, if that's a thing. Like it fits exactly.
The subject matter itself isn't even really that dark. I mean, she's just trying to find her laptop, but the way it's presented is so. And I remember there was that scene at the flea market, or like the crap market that she went to, where the guy he breaks her fingers, the main character, in the most disgusting way, and I literally had to turn it off for 5 minutes because I was so grossed out by it.
Yeah, that scene, and then the scene where he's like the guy sneaks into her house, and like any normal person, in that scenario would immediately grab the closest thing and swing at him.
Right.
But there's like this movie logic thing where like someone's like, I said something creepy, and then you freeze. She's just like, no, and she grabs it, she hits him and like collapses his like windpipe.
Yeah.
And he goes running out of the house, and she's like, oh no, I'm sorry. It's that was prime violent comedy right there.
Yeah, and this is a film discussion, so I don't. We can like spoil the film because we had a week to watch it, but towards the end we find out that like some people do die in the film, and her one friend in the film who did die was Elijah Wood's character, and in the end I thought the film was taking a more serious turn, but then in the end we see that he's like grilling some hamburgers.
Yeah.
How do you guys interpret that? Is that just for comedic effect, or like,
that was just a joke?
is there more? Okay.
Yeah, that's just a joke, I think, because they had this whole thing about like the grandma has this like mist around her sometimes.
Yeah.
And then they were doing like a comedy, like a visual comedy thing where it was like you're made to think he's dead and it's a vision, and then it just pulls out and he's just burning it. He's just burning the burgers, I'm pretty sure you want all the juice out of it. I'm sure it's like, no, you want to keep the juice in.
That was great. I was so happy when that shot happened. I was like, if he is in fact dead, this movie moves down a couple points for me because I love this character so much. But he was just grilling the burgers, which made me happy in the end.
Hell yeah,
yeah. And even the wife of the man that the rich guy, they didn't never really say the name of Chris's dad who died. She even says like, oh, that wasn't one of the women who what would you say, robbed the house and shot the people up. So that's one other good act that we see in the film. So through her acts of kindness, like other acts kind of spread in a way, like karma begins. So that's what I see. So
yeah,
I enjoyed watching. It was a nice watch. Hopefully more stuff comes from Macon Blair in the future. And maybe he could even act in a little bit more of his own stuff, because I liked his one scene. It was funny.
I just read that he's directing a movie starring Peter Dinklage and Josh Brolin, who are playing brothers, and the movie's called Brothers.
Interesting.
So some sort of comedy.
I can never see him doing a straight comedy. Well, I guess I can see him doing a straight comedy, but it's definitely gonna have some more serious undertones. At least.
I'm sure it's gonna be like an action comedy or something.
Probably.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, when theaters do open, I can see that maybe in theaters, but most likely it's going to be a Netflix release, from what I see, because all of Jeremy Saulner's work, all his recent work has been on Netflix, and just like his first one debuted on Netflix as well. But something else that is a Netflix exclusive is Tiger King.
Oh boy.
And the adaptation of kind of a scripted series of Joe Exotic is coming to somewhere. We don't know yet, but they're shopping around the script, and the script is being written by the creator of American Vandal, a series that I've been a big fan of for a long time. It's a satirical crime drama series by the showrunner Dan Langena. My bad. I'm sorry for Dan. I butchered your name, but overall, CBS TV Studios is shopping around due to the popularity of Tiger King itself, and it's become a kind of like a phenomenon in the Netflix space, at least in streaming space. Especially in this time, everyone's been talking about it, and it's gained its popularity, and it's growing. And by that, they're trying to create a series, and they already have Nicolas Cage star in this. So it's a big surprise to me, by only the fact that Nicolas Cage, he's never done a TV series, at least as the lead. We've never seen like lead a TV series to that degree, and this just seems too good to be true to me, at least. It's the casting is right on. It's hard for me to see that this ever happens, and if this does happen, it's going to go crazy in my mind. It's going to be just as big as the documentary series. But what do you guys think? Could this actually happen? Because this is Nick Cage's first like TV role. Will this be a streaming series? What do you guys think?
I guess I just don't understand
Jackson.
how. Oh, sorry to take the mic
No,
from
no,
you,
no.
Fergie. I guess I just don't understand how the documentary filmmakers didn't secure total rights to the story. You know, like this one with Nicolas Cage is based off of an article, and the Kate McKinnon project for her to play Carol Baskin, which is a completely separate project, is based off of a podcast about the
Yeah.
whole life of Joe Exotic. I guess I don't really know how rights work for real stories. I thought, you'd option the rights to his story in general and no one else could do it, but I guess anybody can do it.
Yeah, I think it's because it's real life that makes it basically just free game. I'm sure there's some like legal stuff that go with Joe Exotic and Carol Baskins and stuff like that, but I'm not a lawyer. I guess I really have no idea. I guess
talk to Mark Goodman.
Yeah, we really do. But for anyone who doesn't know, Mark Goodman is the law professor for Kent State School of Media, or whatever they're changing the name to.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think all of these projects will come to fruition. I think it's probably not even guaranteed that one of them will, but
yeah, I think it's so reactionary. It's so it's kind of like, Netflix made that, shockingly wicked something, whatever, about
extremely vile. Yeah.
About Ted Bundy.
Ted
And
Bundy.
it wasn't very good. And I don't think anybody really cared too much about it. I'm sure Netflix saw it as a success, but I don't know. This seems silly to me.
Do you just think they're riding the wave right now? Like,
I mean, for sure.
That's where success goes.
For sure. I mean, I guess that they're assuming that, documentaries have a barrier. And if this documentary got this big, because the source material must be that interesting. So if we make something that's more consumable for more people, like a movie, like a TV show, whatever, like with actors, they must think that they can get this huge market. Though I think part of what made the Joe Exotic thing so crazy, or the Tiger King crazy, was that it was real. Like every moment you were reminded of the fact that this is a documentary and
these aren't actors.
Yeah. These aren't actors. I think it's going to lose that. It's kind of one of those things like, they're making an Avatar: The Last Airbender live action, and it's like you're changing mediums.
Mm-hmm.
Is that really? You might get the crowd to follow you. Doesn't mean it's going to be good. But I guess they don't care. They just want money, which it's fair.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we wouldn't be remiss if we saw this. I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing to make it, but I just have to wonder what story there is to tell besides what the documentary covered.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for seeing Nick Cage be crazy.
Yeah,
like that's like his best roles. So I mean, go for it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially in this time, because by the earliest we can see this is maybe mid next year if they hurry up as soon as possible. But by that time, I kind of think this would be kind of played out and people will be on the next thing. Maybe if there's like a calculated attack on Joe Exotic, like we could create like a documentary series, a kind of a scripted series, and like a film or whatever you want to do. It kind of has to come out right in a row. Like I didn't see the series myself, but if you want to do that and have it be successful, you kind of want it to be back to back to back without that big break. But I don't know. I don't know if this wave can continue to be successful in that time. But do you see this going to like a Netflix, or where do you guys see this going? A streaming service, definitely.
I think it would make sense. I mean, the reason that Tiger King is so big is because it was attached to Netflix, and we talked about this. It kind of hit the perfect storm of release, right? I mean, There's no reason. I think that Tiger King is the best docuseries that I've seen come out of Netflix, but there's no denying that it was perfect timing, and there's nothing to say that if Wild Wild Country or Making a Murderer, which was also extremely successful, if they had come out during coronavirus, it probably would have been the same effect. I don't think it's inherently this story. It is a great story, But there are other great stories that don't catch fire like this one. I think it's because of the time and place that we're in, not necessarily because Joe Exotic's story needs to be told again. I think unless we get another major development in the real life story of Joe Exotic, this probably doesn't need to be made. Like I know they reopened, investigations into Carol Baskin, some law enforcement agency. I don't know if it'll really go anywhere, but if something came of that, or if Joe Exotic's case was looked at again, or if one of the other people with him gets charged, that could be grounds to tell a new story and make it a narrative. I'd watch that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just hope they do something, just not adapt the documentary series, because I can just watch the documentary series in that case. But I would give the first episode a chance just on Nicolas Cage alone, and just seeing him do some cool stuff. But other than that, I'll give it a chance to have more news come out about this, because at this point, I'm sure this is going to come to fruition. If you already have a big name like Nick Cage as the lead, and you have a great, talented showrunner like Dan Lagana. I'm sure I'm screwing that up, but if he's on board with Nick Cage, I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. But we'll see. But something that I know 100% is going to happen is Taika Waititi directing and co-writing a new Star Wars film.
Is it really?
That's because, we talked about it months ago on Film Week when it was announced that he was supposedly going to direct as a candidate for a Star Wars film. But now it's official, announced by Star Wars, a Star Wars Lucasfilm, Disney itself, that he will be doing this. He's going to be co-writing with one of the co-writers from 1917.
Yeah.
And that's one of my favorite films, probably my second favorite film of last year, third favorite film of last year. But it's an awesome film if you haven't seen it. The script is probably one of the, it's a great film, but the script is one of the okay things about it. The script is all right, but it's known for all of its other achievements. But it's a great film as it is. And Taika Waititi, he's directing a theatrically released Star Wars film. Disney announced 2 days ago yesterday on Star Wars Day, which was May the 4th. And everyone knows Taika Waititi first did a episode of The Mandalorian, 2 actually, my bad. And he will also be continuing all his other roles within Marvel, because he's doing the 4th Thor film. But he also got his first Academy Award for Jojo Rabbit earlier this year for a Best Adapted Screenplay. So that's even more of a
dude is crazy busy
for film. Yeah, he's the most busy person in the game as far as we can see, by the open eye. But this is just another thing he's adding to his list of to-do projects.
Yeah.
And Disney's not stopping with Star Wars at this point. What do you guys think about this? Do you think Taika, is this just we talked about if this is a safe pick a while ago, but adding a board, why do you think he's not just solo writing this as a first off? Because I always thought, because he's solo writing Thor 4, why do you think they threw aboard Christy Wilson Carnes? Because he doesn't really have a history with her as far as I can see, unless they have a more personal relationship. Why do you think that is in the first place?
I think he's got a writing partner in the first place mostly because he is so busy. And I'm sure part of it is that it'd be putting a lot on him to write all this stuff by himself. And he is a big writer, though, writing something in the Star Wars universe is different. And I think he's made comments before when he was talking about directing Mandalorian that it's really, really different to direct a Star Wars project than it is when he was in Marvel. Because he said in Marvel, they basically just said, kind of do whatever you want. You just got to do these 3 things so it matches. But he said when it came to Star Wars, you have to be really strictly do the right tone, and you can't do all these extra jokes that he likes to do, or these gags, or any number of things. So I wonder if it was just kind of I'm not so sure, bring on another person, or I'm so busy, bring on another person, or maybe this film is supposed to be something really big, and so they brought on somebody to help him, kind of just work through it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
What do you think, Jackson?
I think, and it's exciting that Sam, I saw that you put in the show notes, but this will be the first woman, Christy Wilson Carnes, to co-write a Star Wars film since Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah,
and that was Leah Brackett, which is of course exciting to get more diverse voices behind the writing team. But
yeah,
apart from that, I think we're all hoping for Taika Waititi to pull out the Star Wars equivalent of Thor Ragnarok in terms of saying, take a series that has had maybe a misstep with its last installment and revitalize it for a new audience. It's certainly what I'm hoping for. But we have to wonder if Star Wars, like you mentioned, Doerge, Star Wars' team's philosophy to creating them, if that will inhibit his ability to add a fresh take.
And I think it's fair to say that, not that he had complete freedom at Marvel. I think when you look at something like Thor Ragnarok, really the most interesting part of it, and the part that had Taika Waititi written all over it, was the whole Thor and Loki on, Sakaar or whatever, that junk planet. And the most boring part of that movie is everything with Cate Blanchett. Sorry, Cate Blanchett was great, but like that whole storyline on Asgard was just, to me, incredibly boring. And comparatively, because it was like,
I think it is boring. Yes.
Yeah, he didn't write that film though. We have to remember that. Like he didn't really write Ragnarok. He just directed it. But
I think you can see his creative touch more on Sakaar, because I think he had more room to kind of just make that what he wanted it, sort of. But that's a good point. We'll see. We'll see. It's gonna be one of those movies that's. I think his style would work well for Star Wars. He's one of those people that likes really light and really dark. I recently watched Jojo Rabbit, and that's a movie that's like, the tone is very carefully. It's so bright and upbeat, and it's hiding this like super, super dark subject matter beneath it. And I think that's a game that Star Wars plays sometimes, where it's like, fun space adventures, but also these guys are Nazis and this is a Satan cult, like, what are we going to do, sort of thing. So I think it'd be interesting. I don't, they haven't released any information about it, so I have no idea if this is,
not really, if
he's getting like a trilogy, or if this is just a movie, like, at this point I have no faith in Star Wars movies. So
yeah. But do you guys think this could be the first Star Wars film to release? Because the first Star Wars film to release is in 2023, like after this big, like this hiatus. Do you think this could be that one, since this is the most information we have on a project from like Lucasfilm? Do you think this is the one that's going to release in 2023
at this point, dude? I don't believe Star Wars movies are ever going to get made again. No, not saying like the last one was that bad. I'm just saying like there's so many, just like this movie's being made, and this movie is, this guy's making this one. Oh no, they're not doing it anymore. It's just like Star Wars movies don't exist anymore. Star Wars is now like a television franchise, which I'm down for. I mean, Dave Filoni put us on his back and is just going to carry us for the next 10 years.
No, certainly. It seems like the expanded universe materials, including the Clone Wars TV show, which is just wrapped up, and Mandalorian, are what's really carrying the series at this point. I'm not opposed to getting a new trilogy, but they'd really have to tread careful ground to make sure that it really resonates with the audience. I think they'd have to. I think The Force Awakens was a good move in how it played it safe to Star Wars fans. And I think in a lot of ways, it appeals to what they loved. But I think if we get another Force Awakens, people will feel a little tired, and they'll maybe think that the series is just retreading. Because where do you go from there? You had the first trilogy, which was groundbreaking, the prequel trilogy, which basically laid a further foundation there, and then you have the sequel trilogy, which continues to tie itself to the Skywalker I mean, all of these films, being different trilogies, are still very connected. And now I feel like if we have another Skywalker tied story, it's going to feel too tired. And I think they have to really go way out into the galaxy and find something else. And that could go either way.
Yeah, and I think they're working on it. They've been talking a lot about this high, like new old High Republic or something. This new like era that they're introducing in the books. I don't know. Everything just seems so up in the air, and there's no steady hand behind it right now. There's nobody just being like, "This is what we're doing next." It's kind of like the DC universe where they're just like, "I don't know, we're gonna make a movie, and then if that movie is good, we'll make a sequel. If it's bad, we'll just pretend it never happened, or maybe pretend it happened, but then recast everybody." Like
and called the Star Wars.
I was about to say.
We'll call it this Taika Waititi Star Wars movie is not called Star Wars, it's called The Star Wars, and that's its big difference. It's a full reboot, complete reimagining of everything. I don't know. This is cool, I guess, but like Taika Waititi is tapped to direct everything that's coming out.
He's currently in post-production of The Last Goal. I think that's what it's called, with Michael.
Soccer movie or whatever.
Yeah, the soccer movie. And he finished filming that. It was supposed to release the end of this year, I think, but
yeah,
I doubt that's happening at this point. So it's probably going to get pushed out into next year. And then he has Thor 4 he's still writing it, and he's filming early next year. And he was supposed to do Akira too, but that's not.
He's supposed to do Akira.
Yeah.
I feel like we talk about Taika Waititi's,
and he's doing a TV show too, isn't he? Doing a Willy Wonka TV show?
Yeah, he's doing like 5 Willy Wonka TV shows.
I don't understand. Like, is the thing? Is he actually getting more work, or is his name that valuable that just anytime he gets attached? Because I'm wondering if like this is not like an abnormal amount of work to be assigned to. It's just that every time someone signs him, they immediately release it because they know it'll get hype or something. Mm-hmm. Because this dude is doing everything. It seems like. I guess I'd have to look at his release dates, but like, I'm sure
I'm missing a few of things, but those are the main things that come off the top of my head. So
yeah, I mean, it's
he's
a
crazy busy guy. Yeah, I'm sure he's happy. Yeah,
and I've seen all the franchise he hasn't touched, honestly.
Give him that.
You always see the images of him sleeping on set, which are always nice because you have to do it if you're that busy. But something that we're all busy with is watching the Clone Wars, which I've been skipping on. But Doerge, if you can just give us your little impression of like the last 4 episodes that you've seen, like your little quick non-spoiler review for all the audience out there.
Yeah,
what do you think? Did it end the series in a meaningful way? Was it worth?
Make me want to watch it, certainly.
Yeah. So let me pitch it to you like this. So the latest season, they wrap up some arcs from the older ones. They had like these. They do Clone Wars in 4 episode arcs for the most part. So this season was 3 arcs. First 2 were like.
I like the first. The second one, I hate it.
See, I didn't. Can I swear?
Yeah, sure.
We're online.
YouTube's fine.
I didn't give 2 shits about the first arc. I'll be honest. Like, it was clones. I get it.
It was
kind of
cool. One, yeah.
It was fun action. I liked the second. I liked the second arc. I thought it was interesting. I like seeing Ahsoka. I like seeing kind of the average Joe in the Star Wars universe doing whatever. I think it was an interesting, talking about like trying to find new stories in this universe that we've been making movies and TV shows and comics about for X amount of years. It was really cool. But the last arc, so it ties up the whole series. First off,
it leads you directly into the return. What's it called? I'm blanking right now. Episode 3.
So it doesn't lead into it. It directly takes place during it. So the first episode takes place like a couple hours before Revenge of the Sith opens. And then as the series goes on, it's basically telling you where Ahsoka is during Revenge of the Sith. And it ties in. Anytime you see Obi-Wan or Anakin, it ties into what they're doing in Revenge of the Sith. So as far as like, I never really watched a lot of the Clone Wars. Like, I saw episodes here and there. It was kind of a kid's show at certain points, and by the time it became like cool and like mature and had some like really interesting arcs, I already didn't care about it anymore. So I didn't watch it. But I've been watching this, and even having now watched it, there was still like a part of me that like really felt a lot of the emotional stuff in it. They really do a nice job of like really tying in the kind of emotional core of what's happening, especially because like it's a kids show that has a genocide as the finale, that's the weirdest part about it, is that it's a kids animated show that's like made sort of, for like teenagers, young adults sort of thing, but they can't use the main characters, Anakin and Obi-Wan, because they're in Revenge of the Sith, and we already know what happens to them. They only have Ahsoka and Rex really to be like the main characters that get like an ending sort of. And they can't do anything with the Purge. Like they can't like overcome it. They can't like stop it. They just have to like survive. So really the series just kind of ends on this
solemn note.
Solemn.
Like I know what happens because I read the book. Yeah.
It's very I don't it's very it's strange. It's like ending a series. They do it really in a really epic way, but it's very it's interesting to see them try and be like, okay, we can't like really tie things up per se at the end of this 7-season TV series, but they do what they can. And I think they did it really well for the situation they were in. Not to say it was difficult, it's just definitely abnormal. Because all these themes they've been building up, all these, like all this conflict, it gets resolved in a movie that came out 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So then they have to use this other character to kind of resolve her story a little bit. But then her story gets resolved in Star Wars Rebels, which came out 2 years ago. So they're just like wrapping up this like chapter of her life, sort of.
It's a little bridge area for the whole entire
it's
episode
really, it's
2
really
to 3.
It's like a bridge just to like kind of let you know what happened, but they find every way they can to make it like emotionally resonant, which was really cool. The last episode ends on a really interesting kind of like a solemn, sort of introspective kind of note. There's like no dialogue for the last like 5 minutes or so. It's really interesting. No spoilers. It's action packed. So the animation is crazy good. They did for the fight scenes, they didn't animate it, they did motion capture.
Oh, cool.
So it's really, really fluid action scenes. There's this duel between Darth Maul and Ahsoka. I guess at that point who's just called Maul and Ahsoka during on Mandalore, which is really cool. There's a big whole like, because it all takes place as Ahsoka's during the siege of Mandalore. It's all pretty cool. It's kind of like a little Star Wars movie on its own, but a lot of it ends up being like kind of filler action. Anybody praising Clone Wars for being like the best TV show ever made is
I would never say that. But
they're very
there's some arcs in there that really work for me, and I will always remember.
Yeah, there's portions of Clone Wars that I really dig. Yeah, and like the last 4 episodes were good. They weren't like knock your socks off, but like animation's really cool. They're able to tie up a lot of the Clone Wars stuff in it to kind of bridge it going into the movies and into the next series. And it was the best Star Wars stuff that's come out since Mandalorian. So that's why if you're going to watch it, watch it. You probably should watch some of the other arcs beforehand. I would watch the arc about the implants in the clones' heads so that a big twist happens later on. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So
I forget the guy's name.
The opening 4 episodes of season 6, if you watch that and then watch the last 4, it'll make more sense, but it's still
Jesse. His name's Jesse. Okay. I think it's Jesse.
The guy who discovers the implants is his name is Five.
The guy who has the implants.
They all have implants.
No. The guy who like went crazy. That's Jesse, I think.
Wasn't Jesse?
No, wasn't Jesse. That was I forget. Never mind.
It's a dude with a man bun.
Yeah, but anyway, I heard that they're gonna do like supercut like episode 3 and these last 4 episodes in a way that like you kind of saw what happened in between. So not they were going to, but someone online was going to do that. Then
it'd be cool.
Down the road, I'd like to see that, but then that would be interesting to see. But I can't wait to watch that right after the show. But
Well,
anyway,
Doerge, I
oh
want
yeah,
to say,
yeah, Jackson, go ahead.
Doerge, you've probably seen. Yeah, no, I know I have no horse in this, Clone Wars discussion, but I wanted to
Sure.
ask, being a huge fan of Revenge of the Sith and all of those, especially the latter prequel stuff. Doerge, how many times you've probably seen the Revenge of the Sith? Probably a dozen times or so.
I watched it last night.
Yeah, I mean,
for May 4th, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it must be cool, this piece of media tied to this story of like Darth Vader becoming who he is, and this whole collapse of the Republic. You've probably seen that ad nauseum so many times. What's it like to see this new perspective all of a sudden after all these years? Like, that must be, it's like this whole chapter you hadn't seen before,
Yeah, it's definitely weird, because I've definitely like confronting recently my like adoration for Star Wars, because especially now Disney's in control and they're really uncertain. They're doing a lot of repetitive stuff. And I'm starting to be like, okay, I'm caring less and less every time. And especially with The Purge, because now it's like, it's the one thing that basically since, it happened in Revenge of the Sith, every story involves it somehow. And I've seen it a billion times. You're right. It was cool the way they show it, because there's definitely this, which is the biggest thing about the last arc that I think you should definitely watch it for. They juggle the tone really, really well. Like, there's this really like dark cloud of like uncertainty that like they know the audience knows what's going to happen, so they don't pretend like it's not going to happen. Like, the music is so creepy all the time. There's these because there's these moments where you're being cued in, like you're seeing, like they recreate little moments in Revenge of the Sith to like let you know where we are along in the movie, and as you get closer and closer, what's about to happen. And so I enjoyed it, because in a lot of the other material they do it in, it's kind of like, oh, it just happens, and then move. I just played Jedi Fallen Order today, and it was like you're just like doing something random, and something happens. It was like, oh no, whatever. This was kind of like it was something I was gonna add, but Jackson gave me a stage for it, so it's great. There's definitely this like feeling of like this overall arcing like kind of dread of like fate, like they can't control what's about to happen to them, and they're going right toward it. And it sucks, because they pull a lot of drama out of the relationship between Rex and Ahsoka and the clones, because a lot of Clone Wars is like making the clones seem like people, whereas in the movies don't do that. They spend a lot of time making the clones feel like people, and then in the last arc, all the clones turn on them.
Right.
And so they find a lot more emotion in it than a lot of stuff has done before. So it was a good addition to that sort of story, though I'm definitely like tired of it and want to see us make some other grand tragedy that someone can make a billion stories, video games about, because it's just like, dude, Star Wars, I love you, but you're bringing me down, man. You're just
there's so much more than this.
You really are. There's so much more we could do than telling the same like two stories over and over ad nauseum. But
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I'm excited to see it. Jackson might give it a chance after hearing this, and
especially the latter
some
four.
of you guys do too.
Yeah, the last four is all you really need to watch. It's very good. The music's really great. They have it's like Star Wars mixed with like Blade Runner music. They let the score composer kind of do his thing, and it's pretty cool. So
awesome. And something else that I think is pretty awesome right now is,
I agree,
for next year's Academy Awards, they're allowing streaming films for nomination.
Just
and
make it permanent.
As they say, for this awards year, this is straight from the website, for this awards year, only streamed films to be eligible for Oscars. So that essentially means in previous years you would have to have, I think, 2 weeks in theaters to be allowed to be nominated for these awards. But now they're just crossing that requirement off, and you only have to be a streaming film to be allowed to be entered into the competition. And another side note that they added is that sound mixing and sound editing awards are being combined into one sound category, which I know some of our professors at school will have some choice words to say. But
Certainly.
uh, we can talk about that after this news, which I'm kind of I want to talk about that one as well. But uh, and this just comes off of all the stuff we've been going through lately, all the stay at home regulations and rules, and you can't really go to the theaters at this time. And this whole entire summer is pretty much slashed off the calendar for film releases. So how can these films be nominated? It's either cancel the Oscars or push them back, delay them, or you have to uh, adapt to the times and grow. And they're trying to do that. And we've seen that in the past with them doing best popular film, but this is a little bit different. And I've seen a lot more positive remarks from people in the industry from this news. So, like, do you believe this is an essential step to move forward with the award show? Like, without this, would we have to move the award show back and or cancel it? Like, do we have to make this new role? What do you think, Durkee?
I think it's about time. I mean, it's one of those things that it should have happened anyways, because a lot of these movies, the 2 week thing is just them being like, we're better than the streaming services. So then you see Netflix like forcibly like finding
Buy a theater, yeah.
buy a theater, and it's just costing them money for prestige. It's the one thing about film industry that I really don't like is all the politics and snotty noses about it. But I think it's good that at least COVID's forcing them to do it. Because I mean, if they don't, I mean, they'd have like 2 movies, up for Oscars next year. So I dig it. So
Yeah, Jackson, you said something before the news. I formally announced it, but it seems like you're in positive, like you have positive views on this news.
Yeah,
You think it
certainly.
should happen sooner?
I think it should have happened sooner, and I'm glad that we're seeing the first steps now. It's not a full victory. They are saying that this is mainly for movies that had a planned theatrical release already, or films that, but it's undeniable that this may lead to more films that, get accepted by a certain streaming service to apply for Best Picture nomination, maybe even some films that don't have the budgets of other films to be able to advertise themselves. Now, the chances of anything that wouldn't have been nominated anyway getting in is pretty slim, but opening that door just a little bit is exciting. And I doubt that this will be a 1-year thing. I really do think that this will destroy the argument that we can't possibly do this because we've done it already and it worked just fine. At least I'm hoping that it turns out to work just fine. But it's a no-brainer to me. I think it's ridiculous that the Academy claims that, we think that the best way to consume cinema is in the theater exclusively. It is purely a money and industry rule. It is gatekeeping to ensure that the films that spend the most money have the greatest chance to win Best Picture.
yeah.
I think it shouldn't be that way. I think it should be, and it certainly won't sustain that much longer. I really hope that within the next decade, by 2030, we think it's ridiculous that it was only films that were in the theaters. It should be any film that submits itself that meets obviously some certain requirements. You can't just put in, I don't know, Charlie the Unicorn or something and expect that to be eligible. There's a throwback reference. That's the only YouTube video I could think of at the moment. But, but I mean, obviously barring certain requirements, this is a great step in the right direction. And I think it's great for independent filmmakers and people who don't have the means to have their art seen by a wider audience, but that they'll no longer be held back by not being able to get their movie in a theater. There are lots of great movies that should be considered that probably will in the future, and I'm excited for that.
Yeah, same here. And I just think this is a long time coming, like since we've seen this. And just like you said, within a few years, I think this will become common practice because I honestly think that by the former role of having to have 2 weeks in theaters, you're really you're scaring off a lot of the prestigious, as seen prestigious people like Scorsese, who has gone to Netflix, and that was his one stipulation, is that he wanted his film to be seen in theaters because he wanted to be up for these awards. So I think if you do allow this streaming services to be just allowed to be nominated for Oscars, I think you'll get the influx of so many other prestigious, so-called prestigious like names to go on these services, have a lot more creativity with their work, and just do whatever they want on Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, Peacock, like we're seeing in the comments. Like you can do anything like on these streaming services. So I think this just opens a lot more doors for everyone involved. Amateurs, not amateurs, but so-called rookies to the film industry, and veterans like the Scorseses. And I honestly think this is better for everyone. And hopefully this continues. Unlike the previous rules that everyone hated, like best popular film, I haven't seen any backlash to this. I've hardly even seen any news about this. I haven't seen too many people talk about this, and this is a pretty big change. And at least for the eliminating that requirement for this year, but also but it seems like the other rule that we talked about briefly is a permanent change. Is that how you see it, Jackson? The sound categories?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I am not a sound expert and don't know enough to understand the nuances. I mean, Doerge's explained it to me a half dozen times, but I really still don't fully understand why or how they're separate categories. But I recognize that the people who know and who would care most and who should be listened to are the people who work in that industry and who do hold those jobs. So
for our audience, Doerge, could you explain the difference again?
Yeah, so I'll probably get yelled at by my former sound professor. As of this Saturday, I'll be graduating. But basically, so sound editing is the creation of sounds, of new sounds. Sound mixing is how you balance all the sounds in the movie together. So like Star Wars gets a lot of accolades for its sound editing because it creates a lot of new sounds, whereas something like Ford v Ferrari gets a sound mixing accolade because they balance the sounds in a really interesting way, in a really pleasant way that tells the story the right way. That's what it's supposed to be. A lot of the times you get to the Oscars, they don't explain it to the people voting, or they don't care and they just vote randomly. Just, it kind of doesn't make any sense.
Who had cool sounds, basically.
Yeah, so if they're going to combine it, if people didn't already get it, if you're going to combine it, I think that works well too, I guess. But,
Yeah,
whatever.
I think as long as the professionals who work in that industry want it to be two separate categories, and of course the majority. I don't think anyone cares if just a minority of sound people think that this is the way it should be. But if there's an overwhelming assumption that sound professionals want it this way, and they ask them, and that's what they say, then that's how it should be, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I hopefully, I don't know. I just hope they don't see it as a slight on these people, that their profession isn't worthy of like a singular category. I hope they don't see it as that. And I just hope it's not taking the light away from these people, because I know they put in the hard work, and they already don't get the recognition they kind of deserve. No one says their name. They're not the Scorseses, but some of these people are well known for their exact profession. So I hope this helps. I'm sure it helps the awards show just for timing reasons. That's probably why they're doing that. But
I mean, they're certainly not the only category who does it. I mean, think about, there is no lighting award, but there's a cinematography award, which generally encompasses elements of scene lighting. And even though the director of photography is in charge of the general lighting design, I mean, there's more that goes into that than just pointing a camera somewhere and shooting it. Sound is, there are many other technical disciplines that get just one singular category, when hair and makeup could arguably be separate categories if you wanted to, but there's only so much time in an evening, so you can only give away so many awards.
Definitely,
so I think it's fine either way, but I think sound experts should be consulted for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, moving on to one of our final topics for season 2 of Filmmake, and that's Regal Cinemas. They have teamed up with AMC in a way to kind of fight Universal again on their continued practice of releasing films VOD during this time. And the funny thing is, Universal isn't the only uh, distributor slash production company doing this. Like Disney, they're releasing Artemis Fowl, like we said last week, on Disney Plus. Warner Brothers is releasing their Scooby Doo movie Scoob on VOD in a way. Like they're doing that, but these two major theater companies have teamed up, and they're both attacking Universal for releasing Trolls World Tour VOD, and Universal has also they're releasing other things in the future on VOD as well. But they've decided to bar future Universal releases. AMC altogether, they've banned Universal films until they haven't really said until when, but they've said we're banning Universal distributed films, and they're not releasing those.
What?
So, yeah, that was said right after, like a few days after our show last week. They said that, but now Regal has kind of joined them in a way, and they're being aggressive towards a Universal. They haven't said we've banned their films, but they said we're taking like their necessary precautions to make sure that Universal understands that they've really severed their relationship. Like their relationship right now is very damaged with theaters currently. And like, do you guys think that this is just do you think the goal of Regal and AMC is to make an example of Universal, so that like these like other companies like Disney and Warner Brothers don't continue releasing these films VOD? Because they're not the only one, and most of these places have streaming services at this point, and Universal is the only one not. Like they don't have a streaming service. Warner Brothers, they have HBO Max that's releasing in the summer still. Universal, they do have Peacock at this point, but it's not. I don't think it's going to be the powerhouse that like HBO Max. It's not going to be releasing original content as much as HBO Max and Disney Plus. So, what do you guys think the goal of Regal and AMC is in this? And what do you think, Jackson?
They're going to make themselves look like fools, and they're going to be remembered as foolish moves by a dying subsection.
Yeah.
Foolish. I mean, listen, I adore theaters. We've talked about this ad nauseum. We like the theater experience, and we like these, but Scoob is going to be a banger. I really want this situation to go to some sort of legal court case so that a major industry court battle could be over Scoob and Trolls World Tour. I think that'd be pretty funny. But this is, I mean, we've talked about this. The theaters have no power in this situation. What do they have to offer besides declining ticket sales and a platform that promotes that can't be utilized due to an ongoing global virus? It's ridiculous. Yeah. They have no cards to play. This is an odd bluff, and I don't see it playing out well for them.
Yeah, I complete agreement that they have no power. Like if you're gonna threaten someone, you need to have like a gun, or like be standing over them, or like be bigger than them somehow. But they're not. They have no power other than they show movies in theaters, which, yeah, not to downplay, they still make a lot of money for the companies. Who knows in 6 months, however many months when this is over, if people are even gonna people are gonna want to go back to theaters. There'll definitely be a surge, but people are gonna be pretty used to watching stuff at home. Cautious and pretty used to watching stuff at home. So if Universal's just like, okay, no one wants to show our movies.
Peacock, come fly here.
Or Netflix, or
Peacock will sell it to people, we'll just start distributing it. Like I really, they're grasping at straws, I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe we have no idea, and they actually do have all this power. But right now, it'll be like, don't show any of their movies. It'd be like, okay, great. You're not showing movies right now anyways.
Yeah. And I don't want to, I'm sure Universal, it if they really did go forward with this ban, I'm sure it would be a significant downturn for Universal for their big budget films. Certainly, I mean, people love seeing big franchise films in theaters from
Fast
Universal.
9.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the theater model's
That's the
huge for
definition
that.
of a theater film right there. But
Yeah.
Yeah, but it can't be denied that the theaters need the movies more than the movies need the theaters right now. They are just one distribution model that isn't even, that is quickly becoming one of the not the most prominent distribution model in terms of revenue. I mean, it's just there are other places to go, and you have nothing else if you don't have the big movies, because that's what brings people in.
Yeah.
And it seemed like directly after Universal said a Trolls World Tour, it did really good for what we like. It really passed our expectations for what it was going to do on VOD, and they just announced that. And right after that, that's when Regal said, "We're also joining in AMC's move to start having repercussions set upon Universal." And they said this like in a joint statement in a way. So it's us. The more successful Universal gets without them, the more they're going to start attacking their partner, because they're partners in a way. The theaters need the theaters really need the production companies and the distributors, but the distributors kind of don't need them in a way, because they're kind of eliminating the middleman in a way by creating their own streaming service. So, and we're seeing that essentially every major distributor, they're creating their own streaming service, and if you want to see their films in the future, you're gonna have to get that, it seems like. And Peacock, Universal service, it seems like it's free with Comcast. So if you have Comcast, you have Peacock. So that's another way they can kind of get you into buying into their service at this point.
Yeah,
but that's the future.
Trolls was a success story. It broke digital records. It did, I think it was the equivalent of 100 million in 3 weeks based on, I mean, what else can you hope for? It turned a great profit, and it was probably a cheaper distribution model overall.
Oh yeah, by far.
Yeah.
And people really, in theaters, people expected this film to kind of bomb in a way.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it did worse.
They saw it doing like kind of half as what the first film did, but by their expectations, it was a success and that's all that matters. What if Universal sees it as a success? That's what it is to them. They funded it. That's what it was. And the more time these films sit on a shelf, the more money they're losing in a way, because people invested in these films in a way, and they want their money back so they can reinvest it into other films they're producing. So they have to release them somehow, and the theaters have to be understanding in a way to these distributors and production companies. So
yeah,
it's a rough time for everyone, but they have to adapt in a way.
Yeah.
But so one way we're adapting here at Film Week is we're watching films, and we have a large history of watching films, and we since this is our last episode for a while, and there's no more Film Club, we're just going to give you guys each 3 films to kind of watch throughout the summer and quarantine, to continue your movie watching experience and just have a great time watching films. So I'm just going to start with one of mine that I've liked throughout the years, and it's currently on Netflix. And it's the Polka King, and that's with my friend Jack Black. And it's an odd film. I saw, I think, maybe the beginning of the school year, my first semester. I think it might have been right before I went to school, but it's a fun film. It's a Netflix film, by the way, but it has it's a funny film. There's a lot of weird actors in it, ones I never expected to see just in a film with Jack Black. And it's kind of like a satirical drama. It's a dark, to me, it's a dark comedy, and I really liked it. It's based on true events. I enjoyed watching it when I did. It's one of my favorite films that is a Netflix original that I've seen in a while. But
yeah,
and if you want to laugh, it's that film. If you like a serious drama, that's the film you should watch on Netflix. What's one of yours, Jackson?
Are we doing 1, 2, 3? Or are we doing
1, 2, 3?
Okay.
Yeah.
So My first pick is The Martian, starring Matt Damon. It kind of plays on the themes of isolation we're dealing with right now and making the most out of a bad situation. And despite the subject matter, I mean, the book it's based on is hilarious, so this movie is hilarious as well. I think it's a great time. I think it's a good, lighthearted space movie, which is hard to come by. So if you haven't seen it already, check that one out this summer.
Yeah.
What do you got, Doerge?
Ricky, what's one of yours?
Well, I'm a broken record, but it's a movie that I was going to say it. So Ryan,
let me guess.
Is
it not Brick?
So Ryan Johnson's first movie, Brick, which you're laughing. I want everybody to watch it. I realize most people are going to watch it and be like, "Oh, it's just a whatever." What I like about it and what I tried to do for my list was I tried to pick things because I could always just pick random movies to suggest to people. I tried to pick movies that made me want to make movies. I tried to think of the movies like after I got done watching them, I was like that like re-inspired me sort of thing. And Brick was one of the big movies when I first got into college that I watched, and I was just like, that's what I want to do, you know?
Yeah.
So I really dig it. It's Joseph Gordon-Levitt in his first adult role. It's Ryan Johnson in his debut feature. Its soundtrack is amazing, and it's really gritty, like low-budget filmmaking, but it feels very professional, and there's a lot of stuff you can learn from it if you're into filmmaking, I think. So, anyways, also because Ryan Johnson's one of the best directors of this generation, but you know, you joke about that, but you know, it's also true.
No, but Doerge's recommended it so many times. We do laugh, but we still haven't seen it. So you know, he'll keep recommending it until we actually see it, which will have to be.
I want to see it, but I just wish is it on Canopy?
It's not on Canopy. It was on Netflix a while ago.
Yeah.
I think the only place you can get it now is you could rent it on YouTube for like $2, or you could here. Let me look it up. 2005.
Not bad.
Yeah, you can rent it on YouTube or Amazon Prime. I have it on. I should have loaned it to you before this quarantine because I have a DVD and I have the recent Blu-ray like 4K rescan of it.
There you go.
Or I think it's just I don't remember, but yeah, I have that. So I have 2 copies of it. If anyone needs it, you can drop it at your door after I disinfect it.
Awesome, but. Another film that I was thinking that it's a good one for this time, I think, and that is a film that I talked about in my best of the decade list, and that's Snowpiercer by Bong Joon-ho. If you haven't seen it yet, go and watch it. I think it was on Netflix just like Brick a while back, but
it still is.
It's still is. So,
they put it back on.
It probably just for Parasite. They probably just got it right back to say like Bong Joon-ho directed it, but it's a great film on its own right, and it also has a big star like Chris Evans to lead it, which brought me onto it because I didn't really know much about it before I saw it, but it had that big American star like Chris Evans. It's it's the highest budgeted South Korean film ever, and you see it. And we also talked about in recent weeks that the pilot for the TV adaptation of this film is coming out in May, I think. So if you want to get a head start and learn about what that's about, watch that. And it's also much like the first installment of the FilmClub film, The Platform. I think a lot of films parallel between those two films. And this film has a lot of character with Tilda Swinton is also in this film as well. So we talked about her earlier in today, but yeah, it has a lot of character. This film, it's not too much of a, it has nihilistic themes, but Jackson, what's your second film?
No, I think Snowpiercer is about as nihilistic and downtrodden as it gets, but great movie. My second film is The Death of Stalin. It came out a few years ago. Yeah,
I watched that the other night. That was the funniest shit I've seen in a while.
That movie is great, and it's just a beautiful example of it's a corrupt government. It's this crazy view of Stalin's death and all of these high-ranking political officials trying to seize power in a hilarious, brutal at times depressing, but mostly hysterical way.
It's the darkest, funniest dark comedy you can find. Like dark comedy, it is the most of both of those things. It can be terrifying and also, like Jackson said, just rolling on the ground type stuff. It's great. Steve Buscemi playing Khrushchev, which is just silly.
Just great, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you got, Doerge? What's your second pick?
Well, I'm having a lot of trouble. So whenever I am told, like, suggest movies or think of your favorite movies, I draw a blank. So I'm going to break the rules a little bit.
Okay.
I'm going to suggest a TV show.
There you go.
Cowboy Bebop. It's an anime.
Nice.
But get over yourself, because it's a Western sci-fi like thriller crime, like throw it all together and make it a martial arts thing too, and it somehow works perfectly. I think people who are used to a lot of Western material will find it very familiar. It's really, if it's kind of like the gateway drug to anime. I feel like I'm not that into anime, but like it's definitely made me think like, well, is there other stuff like this? It's really cool. The main character's got a really cool voice. It was a groundbreaking for its it's a dub, the dubbing at the time. It was one of the first anime dubs that actually took the dubbing process seriously and got a lot of emotion out of it. It's really interesting. The tone of it is really somber and very noir-esque. It's really cool. Like if you ever wanted like it, like Millennium Falcon, but make it like a neo-noir, like it's Cowboy Bebop, and it's pretty cool. A lot of good action scenes and gunfights and martial arts and space battles and stuff like that. So yeah,
that show's cool with a capital C. That show's great.
Where can we find that? What's
it's on Hulu.
It's on Hulu. Okay,
it's on Hulu now. So. There's only one season, but it's from the 1999, so seasons were like 26 episodes then or something.
Yeah.
So it's like just like a really long movie, and trust me, once you watch it, it's gonna stick with you because I think about it constantly.
Yeah, and my third film that I'm gonna pick is one that I personally have never seen myself, but I've heard amazing things about it, and it's from one of my favorite directors, and that's Christopher Nolan. And the film that I've never seen before from him is The Prestige. Some people say that it's like his best film, and a lot of films I've seen from him are really good. So if this one is as said as his best, I have to give it a chance, and I have to find out where to see this. But do you guys think it's one of his best films? Like, or maybe his best?
For sure. I don't let anyone tell you anything about it before.
I think I've heard the spoilers in the past, but my memory is total crap. So
don't jog your memory. Try them out. It's a great.
So I think I've forgotten them. So
there's some awesome twists, really. But don't be looking for them. Really try and just focus on the. Now that I've told you, you'll be looking.
Yeah,
for
awesome.
Them,
just we can. Yeah, everyone, just give it a chance of the summer. I'll be on there with you watching it, and we could have a discussion or something. But we'll try it and watch that. That's a good film to watch, and I'll try to find out where to see that. But Jackson, what's your second one?
Or third one.
Yeah, third. Yeah.
My third film is The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, the Coen Brothers Netflix anthology. It is, not as lighthearted at times as the first two of my recommendations, but it is equal parts, just graphic, brutal American frontier stories and hopeful, uplifting, silly wackiness that the Coen Brothers are good for. So if you like Coen Brothers stuff, it's right up your alley.
It's a vignette style too.
Yeah, vignette, a couple different, I think it's 6 different stories. There is one, I won't say which one, but I will say that there is one story that I really don't enjoy, and it's the one that I skip every time I watch it. I'm not going to say which one it is because everybody should form their own opinion. But just know if there's
text
one
me after. I want to know which one you're talking about.
There's one in particular. That
I think I know what it is. I know what it is. Okay.
It's the one with the chicken. But if there's anything,
I figured.
But I mean, I go into it. I don't mean that. I think they're all good for their own reasons. But definitely check that one out. I think it's a great gem on Netflix from a great pair of directors.
Yeah, we'll definitely send out a list for all you guys who have a terrible memory like me, so we'll let you guys know our whole 9 film list of what to watch in the summer. But Durgy, what's your last one for our
All
film
right.
week list?
I'm really anxious about this because the third one is the one I do not know very well. So I think I'm gonna throw 2 out, but I'm only gonna talk about one. If you haven't seen Juno, watch Juno. That's all I'm gonna say. It's very uplifting. It's fun. The soundtrack is great. It's the movie that actually made me want to make movies. So just throwing it out there. But the movie I'm actually gonna suggest is First Reformed. Paul
Oh,
Schrader, A24. It was
Ethan
big.
Hawke.
Ethan Hawke. Ethan Hawke. Ooh, yes. It was a big influence on my senior project. I really, really dig this movie. If you don't know, it's basically Taxi Driver, but the main character is a priest played by Ethan Hawke, and it's not literally Taxi Driver, but it's kind of riffing on that same thing because Paul Schrader, who wrote and directed First Reformed, he wrote Taxi Driver back in the 70s. It's basically just a story of this priest who gets really disillusioned with how the world is and how his church is basically manipulated and owned by an oil company, like a lot of mega churches are. And it's basically the story of him kind of going down this really dark path. It's really interesting. It's got this sweet voiceover with Ethan Hawke's milky voice.
smooth, milky voice.
It's like it's an A24 drama that turns into a thriller halfway through. And I really dig it. It's definitely dark. So if you're looking for something uplifting, watch Juno instead.
I always heard good things, but only about the first half. I want to see it to form my own opinion. But I always hear people like, I really like the first half, but if people don't enjoy the second half.
It starts because it turns into like a sort of a thriller halfway through, and it gets very, very dark.
Okay.
As it gets into the second half, so that's where it kind of borrows from its Taxi Driver roots.
Mhm.
And I think people who are expecting just like this really tour de force drama end up getting something very different by the end, and that's kind of what I like. So
Yeah. So that's our list for our 9 films to take a look at during the summer / a TV series recommended by Durgy. But that's our little list there. But before we close off the show, I just want to give everyone a little insight on how this show came together in its current iteration. I just wanted to have a show to discuss film while I'm at Kent State. So I just came to the people at Black Squirrel Radio. I pitched them the project, and then they gave me a time that was the day before. I was known. They let me know on a Sunday to start on a Monday. So I didn't know too many people because it was like 3 weeks in, or maybe even 2 weeks in of being on campus. I was a freshman. I still kind of am. So I I knew Jackson because I ran in. I'm trying to get to know people my first few weeks of school, and I went to the rental place where you find cameras, the SRL, which is I later learned that it was called. And he was working there, and I just kept asking him about random stuff, random cameras, lenses, and stuff like that. And he seemed like a nice guy. So I don't even know. I found your email, I think, on the school directory, and because I remembered your first name. And then I remember there's only one Jackson who does DMP. So I'm like, oh, that must be him. And I emailed you about the show. And then I didn't know if anyone was going to come. And then I found Durgy on Twitter. I don't even know how. I'm just typing in random crap at this point.
To this day, I don't know how you found me, honestly.
No, you look like, at least your profile picture looked much older than I thought you would be. So I'm like, this guy probably graduated a few years ago, but I'll give it a shot. I DM'd probably 10 or 15 people because I had a vision for a fun show, discussing film, the weekly occurrences in the film industry. And hopefully that's what it turned out to be. I had a great time doing it for this year. And this was our crew. We had a lot of fun guests that I'm glad we had on. and it was just a fun time. And randomly, I'm glad because at first I thought it was gonna be me. I'm just gonna rotate a bunch of random kids in because I didn't know how it was gonna work, but it worked pretty well the first week. Even though the first week I didn't know what I was doing because I learned by experience. I learned by experience.
There you go.
I learned from that experience. But this has been Film Week Live because we adapt, unlike other shows on Black Squirrel. We continue, we prosper. But
Not to put down the entirety of the Black Squirrel roster.
Yes, get down.
We're like cockroaches. We don't go away.
Yeah, I do it. It's all on me. You don't worry about the put down.
Don't make enemies your freshman year, Sam. Come on. I can say whatever I want, but
this is Durkee's last year. He's graduating from Kent State, and he's moving on to greener pastures, and hopefully we see his name on a marquee very soon. But we have high hopes for the alumni of Film Week here. So I'll be saying similar things to Jackson in the future. But so Durkee's he's been a fun and a very great panelist on the show. I'm glad we had him on. And I was very lucky just to stumble upon his name. And
our resident
I still didn't know how to say his last name for the first 5 weeks, but
it's all right. I always corrected it in the show notes. So
yeah, but it worked. Yeah, and I'm glad that happened.
Yeah. I guess I'll say something real fast. Thank you, Sam. First off, it was. I'm sure Jackson will have a similar experience. It was interesting, 2 weeks into the semester to get an email from someone I don't know being like, "Hi, my name's this. I'm running a radio show. Do you want to do it?" And I was like, "Sure, I guess. I don't know."
That was exactly my sentiment. I turned to Steph and I was just like, "I guess I'll do this. I don't know what it is."
Yeah. And you said Jackson was on. I was like, I know that asshole. But it ended up being a lot of fun, even though I was late all the time, and I'll always be very apologetic for that.
That's your charm, Durkee. You show up sometimes, literally the exact moment that Sam turns and says Durkee's name. Durkee would be sitting down, and he's just in it, ready to go.
Yeah, part of my charm, I guess. But I guess I don't always show my appreciation for the good things around me, and it's definitely been a good experience. And I got to spend time with you guys in a situation I don't usually get to do, and I got to articulate my thoughts on a lot of things that I never would, and I paid attention to the film industry at large, which I wouldn't have done, which has always been. I appreciate it from you guys.
And if it wasn't for Film Week, you wouldn't have known that Snow Dogs was the worst theatrical release per.
Okay, don't make me regret
theater
this, okay?
of all time.
I'm trying to be sentimental, Jackson, but I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate anybody who listened. I guess if we have listeners or whatever,
you must have a few.
I mean, we have at least John and Zach and other John.
We have the podcast is still alive and well.
And I remember Marshall.
Yeah,
I remember Marshall used to send in sometimes. I don't remember after that, but it's definitely be weird graduating. But thanks.
Yeah, thank you for giving me opportunities on your projects, Durkee. It was fun to work on those, and I'm disappointed that I didn't get to work with you further on that other project we were gonna do, but stuff happens.
I mean, that would have been fun, but dude, you're only a freshman. You got a lot of time to keep working, and I think that's something to put in perspective. Is that you definitely are, you're pushing out and you're reaching out to people, and you did get involved on an upperclassman project, which, not to make my project sound cooler than it was, but
it was,
just keep working, and keep positivity is really important, and, not letting the problems that arise from Kent State or from people in general get you down.
They will.
You gotta be self-motivated. With anything, you gotta be self-motivated, and you've got to just not be a negative Nancy. And that goes for both of you. So that's all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna stop rambling.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'll still be asking questions, DMing you every once in a while to read a script that I write. So always be on the watch for that.
And when I have a new project I'm working on, and I need crew that don't want money, I'll call you guys.
I don't want anything but a slice of Hungry Howie's pizza. That's my per diem.
We'll talk about it.
But this has been Film Week for the season 2, whatever you want to call it. We've been glad to have all of you watchers and listeners on the podcast and the live show. Thank you very much. Thank you to Jackson and Doerge for continuing to stay with me for this time. I've appreciated it. And this is Samuel Teyssier. Follow the Film Week Twitter. I might be posting stuff, might not be. We'll see. If I get bored, it might take a few weeks of me to start putting stuff on there. My personal Twitter is also a follower or something of the Film Week Twitter. So if you want to follow that, go ahead. And Jackson, if you want to close yourself out.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a great time, and I'm excited to see what comes next for all of us. So we'll see how that goes.
All right.
And Mr. Doerge, it's been great having you.
Yeah,
and I'll definitely will be texting later, but thank you everyone for watching. This has been Film Week. Guitar riffed out. I would play music. We're gonna dial Doerge out, but thank you guys. And Film Week season 3, who knows? Possibly happening, might not be, but thank you guys for everything. Bye.